So yeah, we'll move on then. The next best Canadian team Dom had was Daryl Sutter's Calgary Flames at the 12th best team in the league contract wise. We'll just fire through quickly. He has Lindholm at like an amazing deal. He has him at $7.9 million surplus over the 3 years, saying he deserves in around that $7 to $7.5 million mark. The next best one he had was our boy Paisan Manjapane. He had him at a $4.2 million surplus. He's only got 1 year left on his deal, I believe. And then again, this one actually shocked me a bit, not necessarily because I don't think he's a really good player. It was more about the deal. Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk. He had him at a $2.5 million surplus. Like, he had him value wise in around 9 million. And like that's one of those ones, like that seems like a lot for a player like that. But
that's
I don't know.
Too much.
You think that's too much? Like I don't know. Like if I guess it depends how you look at it too. Like if he was a free agent, would he get 9 million?
You know what? He probably would,
but which doesn't make it a good deal. But you know,
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think it makes it a good deal, but he had a little bit of an off year last year, and you go through the coaching change with Daryl Sutter, and Daryl Sutter cut his ice time. It was a pretty big cut in ice time as well. Like all those stars saw their ice time drop on Calgary. But yeah, like when you look at what Matthew Tkachuk did, especially a couple of years ago, 34 goals, 77 points. Then he had 61 points in 69 games in 2020. Like
that's a lot though, Bruno. Like 60, he had 61 points in 69 games.
He's a good player.
That gets you paid. He
brings all those other things to the table, right? Like he's your rare guy that can put up points and score goals, but can also, get his nose dirty and throw hits and be physical. So I get why he'd be valued this high. And again, I don't think Dom's model is looking at like this guy throws 3 hits per 60 minutes or whatever. Like, I don't think it's looking at anything like that, but
it just shows in the results on the ice, right? I'm sure that's what Dom's looking at.
Yeah. And when you look at everything he brings to the table. So yeah, I can see why he's valued that high, but personally, I would not pay a guy like Matthew Tkachuk.
That's a lot. That's a lot for a player like that. The next one, he had him in the green. And I thought this one could go either way. It was Johnny Gaudreau. He had him at a $2.3 million surplus. And he had him, if I remember correctly, the quick math I did was like between 8.5 and 9 million. As like fair value for Johnny Gaudreau.
That's going to be polarizing for
and I mean, especially with like how his production's gone down. Like his scoring's gone down. It was like 2 years ago. Did he hit 80 points?
Before he was a 99-point player.
There you go. Yeah, you're right.
Ago.
Yeah, you're right. Now I remember.
Let me double check that. Yeah, he had 99 points in 82 games in 2018, 2019.
There you go.
But then the last 2 years, like you said. So last year he bounced back 49 points in 56 games. The year before that, though, only 58 points in 70 games. So to go from, and even before his 99-point season, he was an 84-point guy. So to go from 85 to 100 points essentially down to what he is now, it's been tough for Flames fans to see him kind of take a step back. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy that, he can put points on the board. And when he's playing at his best, and I know Flames fans might call me crazy for saying this, but he truly is like one of the best offensive players in the game when he is at his best. He really is, just based on like pure talent and skill.
He's gone, eh?
Yeah. Like just looking at the Flames on Cap Friendly right now. Yeah. Like, man, he's making 6.75 this year. And he just doesn't seem like a Daryl Sutter player, something we've also talked about. And he's going to want, I don't think Johnny Gaudreau is going to get like elite money on the open market, but this guy is clearly going to want a raise. He's probably going to want something in the 8 million-ish range. Maybe he'll get a little bit less than that, but yeah, like is Calgary going to dish out that money when they got to pay Matthew Tkachuk?
Yeah. And not to sound all like Negativeville and Flames fans go nuts, like an American living in Calgary. It's like not shocking if he'd end up on an American team.
Yeah, that dude wants to get out of there and go somewhere else, and maybe he just wants a fresh start, right? Because he's gone through some shit there in Calgary, where I think fans to a certain degree have turned on him a little bit because they just expect more out of him. So yeah, if I was to bet right now, I'd say that Johnny Gaudreau is not going to be a Calgary Flame a year from now.
Yeah, no, I think that's a slam dunk, Bruno. Yeah. But the two Reds. One, not shocking at all. Milan Lucic, $8.5 million overpay over 2 years. According to Luszczyszyn's model, not shocking. He pretty well has Lucic as like an entry-level deal player at this point in his career. And the last one, and this one was really bad. And like, I probably would have said like, yeah, this is not a good deal, but this bad, I wasn't sure. He's Blake Coleman. He is Coleman at like an $8.3 million overpay over 6 years. Like the guy's making, I think, is it 5 million? Coleman's making
4.9.
Yeah. And he has him like about $3.5 million player. Like that was a gross amount. He also hates Rasmus Anderson. He has him as like a $7 million overpay over, I think he's got like 5 years left on his deal. So,
and Rasmus Anderson's a guy, like watching him, I really like him.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like his numbers, I think his numbers haven't totally been there, but I actually really like him. It just based on the eye test.
Right.
But yeah,
he can skate and all that. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. But yeah, going back to like Blake Coleman for a second, this is what happens. A guy wins a couple Stanley Cups, shows that he's a perfect third line checking line guy who can kill penalties and do all kinds of things and be versatile and even play with the top players if he needs to. Guys like that are always overpaid. It was the same thing with Barclay Goodrow with the New York Rangers. Like, what the hell were the Rangers thinking giving him a 6-year deal for $3.6 million? Like, those are guys that you just don't overpay. That's how teams get into trouble, right? So I totally agree with Dom Luszczyszyn in this case that Blake Coleman contract is bad, and it's probably going to continue to get worse. And maybe it's not going to be bad for the first year or two, but you go, 3-4 years down the line, you're probably going to regret that decision, I think, if you're Calgary.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's that whole thing when you see the numbers broken down, and it's kind of funny, like how it just works out where you see these numbers, like we mentioned with Tavares before, how it's like, okay, Dom has him at like, say 9 million. It's like, yeah, like that's fair. Like even just without doing any math or looking at any underlying numbers. And like, to your point about the guys in the Flames, like, yeah, they kind of make sense at those numbers, and they'd be nice additions at those numbers, or fair additions at those numbers, I should say. What's interesting, and like I'm excited to see the comments of people, is the star players. Like how I said before, how like he has Matthews at like 17.5 million. Like he is Colorado. He said first place, absolute juggernaut. He has McKinnon's value around 16 million, Rantanen at 12 million, Landeskog at 9 million. He has Cale Makar's value at like 16 million a year.
Wow.
Like that good. Even Gerard, actually 9.5 million a year, and Devin Tays around 10 million a year.
Holy.
That's how good he thinks Colorado is.
Wow.
And it might be one of those things. And again, like ask him how he does the model of like, is it because all these guys are good and because they play together, everything gets kicked up by a certain percent because like everything's just going well all the time. You know what I mean? So I'm sure that ties in the model, even if he intends it not to. It starts to like completely avoid what's going on around the players. But yeah, like the star players in Dom's model get paid. And yeah, again, like the value thing is the discussion topic for sure.